Welcome to From Pixels to Celluloid, a podcast dedicated to the discussion of video game adaptations.
Well, hello there, ladies and gents, and welcome to a new episode of From Pixel to Celluloid, a podcast about video game adaptations. I am one of your hosts for today, returning as the Hypersonic 55, also known as Kurt, and I have my fellow colleague with me today. Say hello, sir.
Hey, it's Vincent at Vincent Trinita in Instagram. I write for onemoregame.ph and happy to be back, Kurt.
Yeah, man, it's been a few months since the last episode. And there's been a fair few things going on, like I guess not only in our own lives, but also in terms of adaptation land and just video games in general. But firstly, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. April's like it's a strange month, like besides being the end of tax season, start of fiscal year. But yeah, we as we were discussing like much earlier, yeah, this month is chock full of adaptations. It's basically adaptation month, so I guess it's like a really good time to do this episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of those sort of weird things that I was looking up when I'd probably say just after, we got a few weeks into January. I was like, why are there like so many adaptations out in April? So, you had Castlevania in June, not June, let me try that again. It was Castlevania in January, the second season of Nocturne. And then we had like Minecraft and Devil May Cry in very short space of each other, literally like a day. And then we are now at the point where The Last of Us season two has come around, and then not too long after this, we're going to be seeing like the film adaptation of Until Dawn. And I'm like, what is all this? Who decided that this was going to be the adaptation month? And then, nothing until like the latter side of the year where we get like Mortal Kombat and like the second Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I'm like, this is a bit bizarre, but hey ho, I guess that's how it works.
Yeah, I guess so. But I guess like nobody really wants to go head to head with all the Marvel and comic movies coming out in summer. Like as far as we know, like video game adaptations is getting there, but it's still not comic book movies are still like top of mind, right? You have Thunderbolts, you have Fantastic Four, you have Superman movie coming up. And as a studio, I don't think I want to like go head to head with that. But Minecraft could have had like a good chance, like it's like 500,000 to 1 billion, like it made money, like I guess because of all its primary audience, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was bound to make money. I kept saying like regardless of how this film turns out, Minecraft is a similar franchise to Five Nights at Freddy's and more specifically Pokemon in the sense that there have been people playing these games for years. And some of those people who are children are now parents who have kids who have now started to get in on that hype as well. So they already have a pre-existing audience who will come to this regardless of the quality. So I knew it was going to make bank. How quickly, I wasn't sure. And I knew that even though I wasn't like super keen on the trailers, even though the second one did start to, entice me a little bit, I was like, this film is still going to make money. But it's surprising that I guess, the rest of the other films just haven't been that great, that they haven't been able to pull in the same amount of money because this one seems to be making all the money so far in 2025. So yeah, I mean, like good for them financially, but at the same time, in terms of that film's content, we'll get there. I have thoughts.
Because I don't fall into the demographic of like I have a kid or I played Minecraft. I'm too old for that. And missed the boat on the kid one. Another
Yeah.
story, another podcast. But yeah, like but I understand that you caught it. For me, it just felt too Jumanji for my taste. Like it had that Jack Black thing, and since they can't afford The Rock, they got the next tier down, Jason Momoa, right? So.
Oh my God, your jokes, man. Terrible. But yeah, I don't know. Did you want me to share my thoughts, like, in terms of that, or did you want me to
Yeah,
save it for
yeah. I
later?
think we have time.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I ended up watching the film last week, Wednesday, I think. I had some time in between work and like a work drink event afterwards, so I needed to waste some time, and there was no way I could sit around for 3 hours. So I was like, yeah, screw it, I might as well give Minecraft a watch. I went into a screen that was full of families and children and like some annoying like teenagers slash maybe young adults who kept shouting at the screen whenever anything with Jack Black happened. So this was prior to any of the controversy really starting to blow up online about it. But any of the sort of, I guess, for lack of a better term, memeable quotes that you could find from the trailers, these guys were just making noise. Oh yeah, look, there's a chicken on screen, and the line like "I am Steve" is like "I am Steve," and they kept making all these stupid little noises and stuff. And I'm like, you could tell they were these try-hard little punks that were trying to, get a reaction out of the audience. And the funny thing is, there was silence, dead silence, anytime they made any noise. And I'm like, I hope you're reading the room right now. That means you can stop. They kept going for a little while, but about maybe halfway through the film, they actually stopped making noise. So I was like, okay, I think they learned their lesson. But in terms of the film itself, it's pretty much what you expected from the trailers. It's just, random human characters who have their own little, like, quirks and I guess life difficulties end up in the Minecraft world. And there's this evil, like, pig lady who wants to get a magical MacGuffin that will, like, ruin the world, but these guys have to basically stop her from getting it. And that's just very bare bones basics, like, what the film is about. All of the characters are basically archetypes. There's not really much to them. There's not really much in the way of depth or character development. And you could argue that it doesn't need it. It doesn't really have much in the way of plot to begin with, unless you're speaking, talking about those spin-off games where there's like more story focused elements in there. But of a film that is all about creativity and coming up with all sorts of crazy things you could do and all the sort of, interesting adventures that you could make. And obviously, with the amount of streamers that have played the game and created servers where they've made all their own little stories, I'm just sad that this is the best that these guys could come up with. Just like a diet Jumanji, but like on the worst kind of scale. It's not that funny. I kept waiting for moments where I would like at least have a chuckle, but the most this film could get out of me was a smirk. And I know I'm a very fickle person when it comes to like comedy movies, but the fact that this film just left me just, if you could just imagine, like this is me sitting here the entire time watching the film, and I was like, hmm, okay. That was it. And Jack Black is just doing his Jack Black thing. And sometimes it can be like, is it entertaining? That's enough. But then there's other times where I'm just like, I wish you were actually a character, on occasions. The most interesting person is Jason Momoa, as he has like at least a little bit more time dedicated to him than you'd expect, to the point where the film sort of redistributes its like, focus from Jack Black, who you'd assume as Steve would be the main character because he is one of the characters from the bloody game. But they take time to focus on Jason Momoa's character, and then we have time to focus on those kids and their the weird sibling dynamic thing that's going on. And then you have like, was it the other lady who honestly there's not really much to her. I think she was literally just there to be like, is it funny, like, is it like lady who, gets into like silly shenanigans. But yeah, there was moments where the film attempted, and again, attempted in quotation marks, to have characters having some sort of depth or at least like some sort of emotional states where you're supposed to care for them, but it doesn't have like the talent in the writing department or takes enough time to, simmer for those moments to have meaning. So, when you're supposed to be feeling, oh, this person's like, not feeling so good, or this person's in trouble, we're supposed to get, I don't care because like you don't earn this because there's not enough time to do this. And any sort of like, trope or convention that from basic stories, it plays out in the same way that you'd expect in this film. By the time it was over, I'm just like, okay. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, there's no reason for me to be moaning about this because it's Minecraft at the end of the day. It was made for children. I'm not in the demographic for this because while I've played Minecraft, I just can't get into the rhythm of it. But I don't have any kids that like would be interested in this, and I'm not a child either. So clearly they were entertained. and they were making a lot of noise while the movie was going on as well. So, good for them. I'm just like, I wish that we wouldn't be in this state where we're still feeding like, children, slop in
Hmm.
terms of content, and we could just give them something that has at least a little bit more depth to it.
Hmm.
It's like you have three different tiers. You have the Mario film that was literally just, perfect 10 out of 10 presentation, but devoid of like, was it a good story and characters? But then I would say on that same sort of level, but maybe just above or below, depending on who you talk to, is the Five Nights at Freddy's film, where that film attempted to tell its own original story while borrowing elements from the games, but its story was also just like needlessly complicated for what it needed to be. And it tried to cram far too many elements from the games that could have been spread over two or three films as opposed to one. But that film definitely, like, relied heavily on the fact that it had streamers in there and a lot of connective tissue to the games, which again, you'd get more out of if you are a fan of that as opposed to being a non-fan. And then you have Minecraft, which I'd say is at the bottom of that tier list, where again, pre-existing fan base who will come in and watch this film regardless, and they probably won't complain about it because they'll just be like, oh yeah, silly, fun CGI nonsense with like, is it, I guess, likable enough characters, and it looks and sounds like the game where it matters. But that would be my way to describe Minecraft. An inoffensive, hollow little film, which I'm sure kids will enjoy and fans of the film will enjoy. But for me or anyone who is expecting something with just a little bit more going on between the ears, it's like, nah.
I'm kind of surprised that you didn't put Sonic in the top tier type of thing, because like yeah, as much as I have like thoughts about Sonic 3, from what you've been describing, I would say like Sonic 3 at least had moments of heart, and it had like a plot to go with that extended from the first two Sonic films, which were excellent, right? Yeah, my biggest thing with Sonic 3 was it was too family for my taste.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like if you're describing, yeah, like Mario is great in presentation but lacks story, is what Sonic has in terms of they try to go into some depth. They try to get their human characters to actually provide more value to the story, so that like something for the adults in the room to come in and watch a movie. Oh, there's something for me. It's not just like for my kids to like have a good time. Yeah, I was thinking about Mario 2 while you were discussing it, where, as you said, like it is hollow in story, but it was great in presentation, where they could have at least put a little bit more effort with the Minecraft movie, but I guess like they all really cashed their check and like really showed like really showed up to just claim a paycheck, everybody, including the writing staff, which is yeah, it's kind of predatory in a way for like a kids movie. Predatory. I'm not gonna go there. But yeah, like from what I've been reading and what I've been seeing, it does have a protagonist problem from what you've said, where you have Jack Black, you have Jason Momoa, you have the kids, and you have the female lead, all trying to vie for the top role when it could have been written as an ensemble where everyone has equally the same amount of screen time and really push to bring their performance and their characters out when they have this screen time and soak it up. Like like you have a lot of movies that work that way. Even Mario, you would say it's like while Mario is the main character, but you have a pretty good ensemble cast that carried their own weight throughout the film. Jack Black was also in the film and carried his own weight in the film. Whether it is voice or whatnot, like people still talk about the whole the musical performance of Bowser, right? Like there are moments like that that stick, but from what you're saying, the only thing that you're gonna come out of the movie feeling is those stupid little teenagers like trying to steal away from the film, right? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. I'd like to, would you say, which of it would be worse, you would say, Borderlands or Minecraft at this point?
That is an interesting question because I still haven't yet to see like, is it the painful experience that people have said that is like Borderlands. So I don't know just yet. I would like to do a comparison because I swear there was at least someone that brought that up at some point, or maybe a podcast I was listening to, just highlighting the fact that, Jack Black was in like one of the worst ones from last year, but he's sort of like, just done a complete 180. He was in this other film, which obviously still not very good by all accounts, but he's like, in a more successful film and obviously like cashing in like, is it that money a lot more. So yeah, I don't know. I do want to give it a watch just to see what's going on, to see what kind of like mess that Eli Roth ended up making. But I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. But yeah, Minecraft. I mean, this what's more interesting about the film is like the sort of chaos that's happening outside of it with all those nutcases running in the cinema, it's like causing all sorts of chaos. Like they're in like a screening of The Room, but like it's not a screening of The Room where that kind of shenanigans are expected. It's just idiots causing chaos, just like throwing all of their like confectionery around, and in that one case bringing that bloody chicken in there, which is just like there's a time and a place for chaos. But if you're like, just chilling in your normal movie screening and then everyone just decides to go ape shit and just cause chaos, I'm like, what are we playing at here? What are we doing?
Right? Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only reason I didn't like bring up Sonic before is because I feel like those films, while I wouldn't call them like, is it some sort of god tier movie, like, series, I would say at least those films, as opposed to the three that I mentioned beforehand, actually attempt and do at least a better job of having at least moments that feel more genuine, and they at least try to take time to build some of these character relationships. Like in the first film, it's all about like, the relationship between like, was it Sonic and Tom?
Mm.
And, it's, your basic road trip, like, was it buddy, like, is it like a relationship that starts to expand and grow? And then by the end of the film, when they have that high five and he's integrated into their family, it feels like an earned moment. These guys have been through enough where it feels like, okay, these guys would be like a good pairing. And with the second film, whilst Tails didn't get as much as Knuckles did, there was that moment between those guys in like in front of that fire after the dance event where Tails is like, "Yo, I've never had any friends anymore. I mean, I've never had any friends, but Sonic called me a friend." He's like, "Oh yeah, like we're friends." Like, "Yeah, sure." And Tails covers him with his little tails while they're sleeping. I'm like, "That's nice. That's cute as crap. I like that." And then there's obviously the whole thing with Sonic and Knuckles. They're adversaries for the majority of the film, but then they have that moment on the beach where it's just like, he realizes, oh yeah, I've been not only deceived by like Robotnik, but you tried to save me. Why? And like they have their own little bonding moment. So by the time that him, Tails, and Knuckles feel, build that bond to, be the protectors of the Master Emerald, again, it works. It feels tangible. And with Sonic 3, again, you have the stuff going on with his history with Maria, but then also him and Sonic come to an understanding as well. And again, there's certain moments between him and Tom where they look back on their previous adventures. Again, these feel real and tangible, and the film takes time to build that up so it feels like, is it a natural progression of where we got from point A to point B. In these other films, like the Mario film moved too fast. They didn't even take the time, and there's little moments where it's just like, oh, Mario has this whole thing where he feels like, a bit of a failure because his family view him as like, is it not much of an individual, and he has this whole thing with his brother. But again, those moments are like, is it just little sprinkles in, but they give up. They didn't even try. They just go on and do other things. And, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's, there's a lot more to dive into with that, so I'm not even going to bother. But like with Minecraft, again, you have these little moments where you have these little interesting little snippets of a view into another film where with better writing we could have had like is it these moments actually hit for them to matter, but it's just not there. It's
Yeah.
it's all at the conceptual phase of the script, and they just didn't take the time to make it work. So that's why I consider the Sonic films in at least like a different league as opposed to
Gotcha.
where we are with these other three films where
Hmm.
I feel like they're very close, but like they all have like their own individual highs and lows, but I feel like the Minecraft one is like the lowest end of that spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair. Sounds good. And since you brought up Mario, what do you think of the upcoming Switch 2?
Oh God. Okay, so this is a minefield of like, conversation, but I will try to be as concise as possible. For the longest time, I've been looking forward to this whole Switch 2, especially with all the rumors coming out about like, is it's different specs, and then people wondering what about what kind of games were coming out, and if there were going to be these Switch 2 enhanced versions of current Switch games that existed. So when this event went down, I was off of work, I went to watch it, and it was genuinely hype. I was like, okay, cool. New Mario Kart. It looks fab. It's on this big world scale. You have all these different characters, and it looks so much fun. And it's a launch game. Excellent. Then we find out about those Switch 2 editions of like current games. So Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom will be running at 60 frames at higher, like, is it fidelity? And you have that whole app thing, but I don't really care about that. But then you have the confirmation that Metroid Prime 4 also has a Switch 2 edition, which will run at 4K 60 or like, is it 120 frames at 1080p. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that game looks insane. And then you have like certain games like Mario Party Jamboree or Kirby and the Forgotten Lands that will be having like, extra DLC or extra like, game on top of the original version. Then you find out finally that GameCube is coming to Switch Online, and the games that they show off are some of my fan favorites, including Soul Calibur 2 and F-Zero GX, which is great because F-Zero GX is one of the sort of games that, unless you're using like I guess a Dolphin emulator, you have to rely on the old 4:3 GameCube footage which people have uploaded. But to be able to see that game in like, higher frame rates and like, is it well, higher fidelity, should I say, is pretty hype. And the stuff about the Joy-Con, the whole mouse integration, the fact that they've reworked the snapping onto the device itself, the fact that it can run up to like, is it 4K and has like all those extra like little bits and bobs that was like right on the money from what the rumors have been talking about since late last year. Everything sounded great. The only issue was at the time, no one knew what the price was, and I was just like, that's strange. I wonder what that is. So then they released the price of the console. Pretty much what I expected. Was it, I'm trying to think now. Over here, I want to say it's like what, 420 something, I think, maybe
Mhm.
430 for the bundled version.
Yeah.
But then you found out about the price of the games and like, oh God, 80 quid is just insanity. Like for me as a purchaser of games, I've never spent more than maybe at most 50 quid for my games. Most times, especially during, I'd say, the GameCube to about maybe the PS3 slash Wii era. Like, I only say those consoles because those are the only ones I owned. I never actually owned a 360, but I
Mhm.
would normally be paying between like 30 to 35 for most of my games and maybe 40 if it was like a slightly enhanced edition that came with I don't know, maybe like an extra poster or something like that. It was only when it came with certain stuff where it was like a slightly fancier edition where I'd, push the button to 50 or whatever. But once we got to, I guess, the current point where we are right now, I'm mostly just waiting for sales.
Mhm.
Unless, again, I'm really want to be part of that conversation. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll drop a 50 or possible 55, but that is the max. But with most PS5 and like, Xbox One games going for like, is it 55 to 60 or 70 quid? I'm like, yo, that's a bit much. But now I'm seeing like that, digitally this is the price and like physically it's going to be like even worse in some cases. And like, oh God, I love Nintendo and I will defend so many of their wonderful games that they've created over the years, but they do some crafty and scummy things. And there is a line that I have to draw in the sand where financially I'm just like, yo, I don't know about that, mate. I don't know. And then you have all the extra shenanigans that come along with like the fact that they've introduced voice chat, but technically speaking, you can only use it when you're using Switch Online, which to a degree, I can understand why people were upset about that, but at the same time, most consoles all have you pay for an online service in some way, shape, or form. But again, I guess for the voice chat aspect, I guess it does seem a bit weird. But then you come up with the whole thing where certain games may not actually come on cartridges, and then you find out obviously the 80 quid, like, is it price point for the game? They were saying, oh yeah, the upcoming direct that aired, I'd say yesterday at the time of recording, was going to give you a justification as to why, it had so much, why the price was there. They basically had that weird statement from like, was it Nintendo where they were just like, oh yeah, we feel like there's so much more in our games now that we feel the need to charge that extra. and it will be like, that extra premium that will feel justified when you play the game. But you see the game, and it's just like, obviously, it's bigger, it's better than before, and it has so many extra elements to it. But at the same time, modes wise, we're not getting that much more than what we got in the previous like Mario Kart entries. And there's still certain things that I'm sure that if you went back to earlier Mario Kart games in terms of the battle mode and the mission mode from DS that people have been asking slash begging to come back for years has been implemented as well. So you're just like, I don't know, man. I think, you should have just stuck with that 70 like, dollar price tag because like that would still be a rough pill to swallow for some, but still be tangible. But I don't know, like I feel like Nintendo are gonna, get bitten in the ass for this and I say it serves them right. It actually just depends on how many people end up buying this thing. And obviously we have the whole thing with the tariffs, which is like, basically messed up everything in America for people to actually buy things. So it could be more expensive. It's a mess. It's a mess. And it's a shame because there's so many interesting games out there that I really want to play, but whether I actually play them for a while, goodness knows. So yeah, man, that wasn't concise at all. Sorry.
Maybe it's time for you to switch to a different hobby.
You're a
Uh,
punk. I hate you.
yeah, I do make myself part of the problem. But yeah, breaking news. The price in the US will stay the same. It's still 449.99 for the regular Switch and 499 with the Mario Kart World.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and pre-orders will start on the 24th, since the whole tariff thing. While in Canada, since we're at the mercy of the US dollar and the mercy of the Orange Man, we we have it now at 629.99 Canadian and
Oh gosh.
699.99 with the Mario Kart World game. So yeah, it's to be expected anyway. I remembered when the PS5 came out and we had to like really pay extra to get the shiny new system. But really, we're all gonna be competing with the scalpers anyway, so that's yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, most of these places are all sold out over here anyway, so I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, I'll get one eventually because again, I've pretty much owned every like Nintendo console since at least the N64, with like the exception of the Game Boy SP.
Mm.
That one was eventually gifted to me. Actually, no, the Game Boy Micro was the one I never owned, but like that just seemed like a pointless gimmick. I'm like, my hands are already as big as they are. Like, it would be pointless for me to own a micro. I'm still debating whether I want to get a Steam Deck though, because I kind of want one just so I could play my PC games on something that would actually be able to run it. So yeah.
I invested in the Steam Deck earlier this year. I basically bought a used one from my friend who upgraded to the OLED, and yeah, it's really good. It's you have a PlayStation 2 to a PlayStation 3.5 level fidelity. You can run most of the run most games on it. You just have to like toggle with the settings in order for you to run like the biggest, the greatest, and the best, latest games that are coming out, which is a good compromise until like the second Steam Deck comes out to handle like the bigger games coming up soon because they just keep getting harder to run on everybody's PCs, right?
Yeah.
And then the constant gear grinding of rejigging your PC to match the graphics level. So that's why like I haven't really bit the bullet for the whole PC gaming, but like with consoles really getting there, Switch 2, the next one, and and then PlayStation 5 increasing their price point now, for everybody waiting to get like a PS5. No, it's not gonna get cheaper. Like you guys are like increasing it like to start, right? I think Canada's going to increase it too, which is yeah, which is a really bitter pill to swallow. Really time to switch to a new hobby, I guess, at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, like I still have my films and my TV shows, which is still good. But gaming will always have that sort of special place in my soul where I'm just like, I couldn't like, leave it entirely, but I do feel like maybe the Steam Deck will be like the best way to go just because, a lot of indie games show up on there and a lot of multi-platform games are normally pretty decent, save for like some of those ones that have like those dodgy first few weeks or months that they have to get like patches because, they were mostly designed with consoles in mind. So PC players sort of get like screwed for a little while. But, with the PlayStation games that do come out on, PC a little while afterwards, I feel like I don't have to worry so much about, that kind of weight in that regard.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's the leadership in in game management always wins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of leadership in games, ever watch Mythic Quest?
So funny thing is, I remember when Mythic Quest was coming out and they were saying, oh yeah, this is like the next big thing now, Rob McElhenney was working on. And obviously I've seen, It's Always Sunny and that show is genuinely one of my favorite things ever. I would say next to South Park and classic Simpsons, it's like one of my easy go-to shows. I could just go back to any season and just like have the best time ever just laughing at just the absurdity of those characters. And I I remember watching Mythic Quest around the time that it came out, and this was when it was still week to week in the first season. I think I got up to about maybe episode 3 or 4, and I was just like, this is an interesting concept, but I'm just not quite vibing with it. So I left it for a while, and then I didn't go back to it until last year, where I ended up watching a few more episodes. And there was that one episode in season 1 where I think it was either episode 6 or 7, where it was like a sort of flashback episode, which
Hmm.
focused on like, is it Rob McElhenney's character and the other lady with the dark hair, and they had this whole sort of interesting backstory. I was like, oh wow, this actually had like some heart and like some depth to it that I wasn't expecting. That was actually pretty good. Um, but then after that, I think I went back to the show. Well, I watched another episode and I just sort of stopped. So I think I was in the latter half of season 1, but just never went back to it. And I intended to go back. It was just a case that, whenever you're watching TV, new or old, you just sort of get into the rhythm of the stuff that you're aware of, and then like whatever you've left behind, you just sort of forget about unless you're, looking it up on what stuff you're watching and what you're not watching. So, yeah, short answer, yes, I have seen at least some episodes of the first season, but not enough, I guess, to make a proper informed opinion on it.
Well, just in case you want to really like jump back into the season, they just canceled the show, sadly, after 4 seasons. And if you read that article, it's pretty cool how they were able to um, change the final episode because they originally they had a cliffhanger going into probably starting a season 5. But they
Yeah.
did change the tag in order for it to have a pretty clean close. Yeah, and as I was telling you, I would say that I would have preferred watching the revision now rather than getting I wouldn't say hyped up, getting more like, oh, more of the show. Oh, I'll get into that get into that comment. But yeah, I would have liked the new revised ending, to be honest with you. I have been following Mythic Quest ever since I caught like binge watched like the first 2 seasons when I got my Apple Plus subscription. And I'd say yeah, like since you've experienced it on a week to week type of thing, where I basically binge watched like the first full season, I would say that the binge really helps. It's one of those shows where like you it's not a great show watching week to week, though, because like many of the jokes kind of repeat themselves. And in terms of like the through line of the season dynamic drama, it's not like like episode per episode, whereas like it's always sunny, like every episode it's self-contained, where this one there is a through line where one season they were trying to get through the whole patch of like the first season, like how the game is starting to wane with the audience and them looking for ways to bring about it. Whereas now it just feels like season 3 and 4, um, it's they're trying to work it that each episode becomes more contained, which
Mhm.
they could have started with season three. Because season three, the through line of the show wasn't really working so well. Because of like the exit of certain characters, right? Um, yeah, F. Murray Abraham left after season two, so because of certain allegations, and they kind of closed his character at the start of season three, but it kind of lost that like all ages dynamic because almost every person of every age is represented in the show. You have like the youthful characters all the way to F. Murray Abraham's basically age, and each
Yeah.
one of them contributes to the game and contributes to the whole dynamic of the sitcom. But now it kind of feels like they've hit a snag, whereas the first two seasons really took it home, like those self-contained episodes that brought a lot of heart to the show. And it's really cool that they started that spin-off side quest to really focus on those arcs, those single story episodes that they had. They still have it in season four, and season three kind of had it, but it didn't really. It had like Poppy's backstory, which is pretty cool for a while, and like really like shout out they really like focused on like Poppy's Filipino-ness, which I don't really see a lot on TV. Really, like they have Joe Coy in one show, but like yeah, that's pretty cool. They focused on Charlotte Dicdow's character, and I think she co-wrote it, so it was a pretty cool segment into her life. Whereas side quest, they have four extra episodes focusing on the other things that go on into making Mythic Quest, like the music of it, and
Yeah.
yeah, like I love that episode because I do love Whiplash as a film. Like, how do you have like a mini Whiplash in such an innocuous show as Mythic Quest? So it's like a story about a cellist and like really wanting to play video game music, and then ending up with like that conductor character. What's his name? Isai Morales. Yeah,
Oh, right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He was playing the conductor, and it has that. It's not full on Fletcher, right? But getting there. It was getting there, and like they had a really cool dynamic with the actress that played the cellist, and like I really enjoyed that episode and side quest. But yeah, those are the things that really like pushed Mythic Quest. Really pushed it at more than a sitcom, but having that heart you see in like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Community, where it brings that. It's not just a funny show, but also focuses on the characters of the show, and that's what I really liked about Mythic Quest. In such a weird, ironic way, it kind of humanizes a lot of these leadership in video games that we kind of like we see in shows. We see them hosting in game awards, right? And then yeah, they kind of humanize them in such a way, which is kind of ironic, as it's executively produced by the Ubisoft management. So
Yeah.
yeah, and every time they have this bit where like, oh, Montreal says this, Montreal says that, and like you go like, I kind of want to see like a Guillermo show up. Which no spoilers, but there are some key episodes where the people from Montreal show up and add a bit more character to it. So yeah, like yeah, it's pretty funny like just watching like top management try to humanize themselves, but in such a way the show definitely has run its course, and I would say I would have preferred watching the revised tag rather than like the one where they set it up for a new season, because like I really felt like, oh, like season five's coming up. I know that the show is beloved, like it does have a lot of following, but I really think that this is a perfect time to end it before it's really outstayed its welcome.
That's fair. I mean, like, I think again, I'll probably still give the show a watch at some point, but it is one of those sort of interesting things where you're watching something and I guess it depends from show to show, but I think after you get past the second season and you get into the third, that's where it'll be that sort of determining factor where you can tell if this thing still has legs or if you're starting to feel like, that sort of sea change where things start to change from being like, is that this is still as enticing as it was in the previous two seasons, or maybe the next season could be the ending point because, depending on what shows you're watching, I think with a lot of stuff, it can either be season 4 or 5, which will be like, that's the point where you should cut it off, unless you still have like that momentum in the story and character department where you still feel like the creators behind it still have enough story to tell where you can probably still go with them a little bit further. It's always a shame when a show is cut down before it's done, but if it feels like it was time for the show to go, you at least still had like 4 seasons with it. I mean, how many shows these days even get past like the first season, or maybe even two if you're lucky? So,
Yeah.
that show had a lot more leg than like, is it a lot of other ones do. So, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with that. By the time season three came out, like halfway through it, I'm like, what are you even trying to do at this point? It's starting to get repetitive. I even think that season three and four are like the same season. They just went part one, part two, but by the time they get to season four, they kind of tried to forget the through line, where season three came from, and kind of make a clean break. Oh, let's just let's forget this plot point happened and then end up in season four. It's like, shouldn't they resolve that? But okay, haha, like these are some funny episodes, right? They really started off strong with season four with some funny episodes, but still fell into that trap that season three kind of started.
Yeah.
And while I do commend that they tried to make a lot of the episodes self-contained, they pretty much lost a lot of the things that made it really good in the first two seasons. And I would say like the first few seasons are great. The show really peaked halfway at season two. And I really wished it could have ended it in season three by like just really taking it off the rails, jump the shark right there and just end it, right? Like basically I feel like when a show jumps the shark, they should really end it.
Yeah.
Whereas here they kind of just delayed the jump. And I think they tried to do it at the end of season four, but since they got canceled, I guess yeah, it's pretty much it. Sorry. Speaking of other adaptations, Devil May Cry came out.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm not even like, hardcore into Devil May Cry. I've only played like, was it the first few chapters of the original game on PS2 and played the demo of the DMC reboot. But I know enough about like Dante, like some of the history with like, was it the world and the characters, especially when it comes to his brother Virgil and like a couple other details. I'm like, okay, I know what's going on here. I know enough. And I know that there was an anime that came out, I think in the late 2000s. I want to say it was like maybe 2007. I never watched because at the time I definitely wasn't nowhere even close to the franchise. So I was just like, yeah, whatever. But with a new adaptation coming to Netflix and with their track record, which, can fluctuate from time to time, because obviously for your Arcanes, your Castlevanias, and was it your Cyberpunk Edge Runners? That was Netflix, right? Remind me again.
Netflix, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so for all of those, you do get like your less than stellar or like not as good adaptations when it comes to stuff like the first season of like Castlevania Nocturne. Not everybody liked the Tomb Raider like show from last year, which was good, but I wouldn't say was anything that would like leave a very big lasting impression. And now you had this adaptation, which Adi Shankar, is that how you say his name? He obviously has been like the dude behind some of these like adaptations, creating these sort of like anime like was it in quotation marks like adaptations for Netflix. And I knew that this show was going to be an eyebrow raiser when they announced they showed off the intro with it being the choice of song Limp Bizkit's Rollin'. Now, I am again no aficionado, but I'm pretty familiar with the sound of the Devil May Cry games. It's always been this interesting mix of like, was it sort of metal and like maybe like a sort of electronic kind of sound in there as well. It's very pulse pounding, like, is it hard hitting, intense kind of stuff that really elevates what you're doing, especially during like, is it battle, even casual battles with like, is it mooks where you're like, just trying to juggle and like create, those crazy combos to get those like, is it crazy high ratings. you have that music to help, like, is it really like amp up the mood? Even in the DMC remake, not remake, reboot, where people really didn't like a lot about that game, but the combat was, one of the elements that people liked, and the soundtrack was pretty good as well. I was like, okay, Roland is as a choice, but hopefully the rest of the show will not be a indication of like questionable things to come. Let's just say, yeah, it got a little questionable from there. So in this show, they do go for a slightly different direction. They incorporate aspects of the game, especially when it comes to its lore and certain aspects of the characters. But this one basically focuses on, this government organization that's basically under the supervision of the vice president. And they are following, like, the demons that are basically running around in the real world. And there's this one main bad guy called the White Rabbit, who is basically, seeking to unleash chaos on the human world. But this government organization is aware that Dante, who is, like, obviously the main protagonist, he is a demon hunter who happens to have a magical MacGuffin that they need in order to not only stop the White Rabbit, but also is this like a little piece that is needed to bridge this gap between the human world and the demon world. And that's, I guess, like, I guess the bare bones basics of what the plot is about without going into spoilers. Now, I think the show started off pretty interestingly in the first couple episodes where you got to learn about this, government organization who have like these specialized demon hunters who are running around with their own special tech with these cool little suits and armory, not armory, like weaponry that can go back and take out demons of a certain caliber. And you get introduced to Dante. He's fun. He has a lot of similarities to the game where he's fairly charismatic, a little silly, very charismatic in the sense that he's not only like cracking jokes and thinks he's pretty cool, but he's also trying to come up with one-liners. He's a little dorky, but at the same time he's endearing in that sort of fun kind of way. And when you see him go into battle for the first time and showing off his abilities, he's cool. And the animation is probably like my favorite aspect of this show. It's got very good art direction. The characters look like they do from the games, and the it's mostly 2D animated. It has like a lot of really cool, sequences for the action where it's like fast, violent, very like explosive, has a good rhythm to it. Some really cool and unique camera angles where they again have definitely studied like, those more unique animated sequences that you find from Japanese anime and have like tried to incorporate it here. I will say though that for all the good 2D goodness that we have, there are some 3D elements in there. And especially when it comes to some of the higher ranking demons who are rendered in 3D specifically, they stick out like a sore thumb. They look kind of blurry. The timing of their animation is just kind of off when compared to everybody else, and they just look ugly. And sometimes for all the cool action sequences that you do, they do that thing where they use like a lower frame rate to depict like, fast movement, but sometimes it just doesn't look as clean as it should do. It's sort of like not as bad, but it has a sort of similarity to Invincible, where there's certain sequences where I'm just like, you guys needed way more frames for that kind of animation that you're trying to pull off right now. But yeah, again, for the most part, the presentation's good. Again, the first few episodes, I was down with the premise and like, the rhythm of what was happening. Again, it was different, but I was seeing some allusions to not only Devil May Cry, but also some other like references to other Capcom stuff, which was like small, yet like, notable if you knew what it was. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. But from there, the show sort of shifts. There's a character called Lady in there who's obviously from the games, but she has a pretty big part to play in the show. And the show sort of shifts its focus from Dante as the main character to incorporate her in there. She has her own backstory that shows up towards the latter side of the show, but her story is very intertwined with the main villain of the show. And for a little while, it's sort of like, Dante sort of becomes a background character in his own show, and she becomes the central focus. And okay, so there's moments where you'd expect over a course of time when certain events happen that characters will, grow, change, progress, or have like certain interaction with people that will change their perspective. And while certain aspects of that does happen, there's certain moments where you'd expect a little bit more nuance or a little bit more like introspection to happen, but it's not done as well as it could have been done. And she's a little frustrating as a character because like she's one of those sort of cool like badass female characters where she's plenty capable, she's pretty cool, she's able to do certain things which I honestly don't think that she should be able to do, considering like the league of villains that she's up against as well. And all of that would have been forgiven if she had a personality that I liked. And at first, again, she seemed pretty nice, but after a while, it's just like she does that thing where she swears a lot, and it's supposed to be like, oh yeah, cool, or part of her personality. But I find it just very, not very nice. And
Girl
by the
boss
time
character.
to a degree, yeah. And I mean, by the time the show is over, my issue was that I feel like she didn't grow as much as she could have. And there's certain moments where, again, you feel like her perspective should have changed a little bit more. She should have, like, her actions should have changed a little bit more. But by the time we got to the end, I was like, yeah. And Dante, as much as I like what they did with him, he seemed a lot more incompetent and less like fun than he was in the games. And again, I'm not expecting a one-to-one adaptation when it comes to these things, but there's a fine line you have to ride between creating something new but also being true to the material you're borrowing from. And I feel like this show on a few occasions just leaned a little too heavily in like, creating its own original material that didn't quite work for me. I think it's all just coming from a storytelling point of view when it comes to the writing. It's just certain moments where it's just like a little bit more nuance here or a little less of that over here and a little bit more of this over here could have worked. But I mean, it's not an entirely bad thing. I would say for me, it's more of a 6 out of 10 at best. There's a lot of really cool things in here. And one of them is also the fact that Kevin Conroy's in here voicing the
Yeah.
vice president, which I didn't know until like the episode started because I heard this voice and I'm like, hold on, I know you. It's Batman. And obviously he's not in that same sort of like lower tone like he uses for Batman in like, is it the games or like, the old TV show. But Kevin Conroy has a very distinctive kind of voice. So when he says certain things, it's like, that's my guy. There he is right there.
Yeah.
But I do think that him along with was it Johnny Young Bosch did a
Yeah.
pretty good job as Dante as well. Again, he's been like pretty notable in the world of like voice acting for a while. Obviously, like those of us who are old enough will remember him as the second Black Ranger from like the old school Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series, but he did a good job. Like when compared to like is it OG Dante from the games, and again there was like enough in here where I think if you're a fan of the games, like you might have like a semi good time with it, or you might hate it. I've seen a lot of people like crucify the show on YouTube and Reddit. I think a lot of people who have no attachment to the series are having a lot more fun with it because there's a lot of debates about fanboys being too salty that it's not like one to one, and then like is it noobs just like not being appreciative of like the more nuanced and like was it fun and interesting stuff that comes with the games that was either changed to a crazy degree or just completely left out. I think the only other thing that I would have an issue with the choice of music for the soundtrack. Because again, like, is it considering the way the music sounds in the games, this show is sort of just like, hey, do you remember all those sort of rock kind of songs from the early 2000s if you were young enough? Here they are in all their shape and form. And like, you go from again rolling with Limp Bizkit to Guerrilla Radio by Rage Against the Machine, which admittedly is one of my favorites. That song I will approve of. But then you get like freaking American like Idiot by Green Day at the end, and I'm like, what is this doing in here? This has no business being here at all. So again, there's certain aspects of the show where it feels a little Americanized, where, Devil May Cry in its original form, obviously there was aspects of it that took place in the real world, but not to this degree. So I'm just like, I don't care for how close this is to like, is it our world? I kind of like the more fictional aspects of it. I should also state that the White Rabbit as the villain was pretty good. He was probably the most compelling character in the whole set, and his voice actor did like a really good job for it. So again, it's not like it's a terrible thing. I would probably watch this before I watched Minecraft again or something like that. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
Oh, what's that? Is it like probably one of the creators' like playlist back in like college or high school?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Adi Shankar, like as it was really big into those kind of songs because I mean, like it says in the credits that he created this show, and as opposed to like Castlevania and a couple of those other ones where it felt like there was at least other people contributing to the show and adding their own like unique flares. Because obviously, like with the OG Castlevania show, that was like was it Warren Ellis that helped like
Mhm.
write on that one. but he said that he's like, pretty much created a fair amount of this. So I feel like he has more creative control over this as opposed to a couple of the other ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when it comes to adaptations as it stands right now, I would still say Castlevania Nocturne is like, is it my favorite thing that's come out this year? Followed by this and then maybe Minecraft at the bottom. I mean, it's not a very like strong showcase to work
No.
with right now. And I'm sure, with the other adaptation that we'll be talking about soon, that probably will supersede like the others, but we'll see.
Yeah. Just have a few questions since I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did mention Kevin Conroy showing up, and then his voice actor pretty much changes, I guess, like because of unfortunately since he passed. Did it kind of change like at towards the end of this series, or like it's just in and out, I guess.
Yeah, so that was the tricky thing because I'd already seen the cast on YouTube, not YouTube, let me try it again. I saw the cast on Wikipedia because I was looking it up because
Yeah.
one of my colleagues at work was talking about it. So I was just looking at the voice cast and I was like, I'd seen that Kevin Conroy was there for the majority of it, but there was another actor, his name was Ian something, who had taken over for some episodes after Kevin had passed. But in terms of those specific episodes, I know they would have shown up in the credits, but I wasn't really paying attention. Plus, obviously, Netflix does that thing where it's just like, oh, hey, you want to see the credits? Nope, go away. We're going to the next episode. Bye bye. So, I did try to listen out for it, and maybe there might have been some subtle, noticeable things towards the latter side of the season, but I would say that it was mostly all pretty consistent to me.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say it was like that noticeable, but again, at the same time, I was, in the rhythm of the episode, so maybe it wasn't as, I wasn't paying attention as much.
And what about Virgil? It's showing here that like he's only on 4 episodes.
Yeah, so Virgil like shows up. And again, I don't want to go too much into spoilers, but he makes a few appearances here and there. And he's decent for the time that he's there, but it's not enough to like leave an impression in terms of like what he's like when compared to his game counterpart. We
Hmm.
got to see a little bit of it, and I'm like, okay, this seems like what they've got the look and some references to the games, which is cool. But again, he's clearly going to be more of a character in the next season. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah. Does he make an impression kind of like when Alucard shows up at the very end of the first Castlevania?
You
When
know what? That's a pretty good comparison. I would say it does feel fairly similar to that.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Might not like rush into it right away. Like I as a game, like I played the first game and I guess like a lot of the fanboys kind of ruined it for me. Especially the third game. Like I think I watched a lot of like I watched a lot of friends of mine play the third game rather than play it myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Virgil was that character, was the character. Like, oh my God, like you should check out Virgil. Oh, it's like, yeah, I get it. Cool. And I would say like it's Devil May Cry 1 and strange enough 4 when Nero showed up because of yeah, like I played it first on Xbox 360 when I
Yeah.
first had it. It's like one of the bigger games that came out that year. But yeah, like yeah, that game was kind of weird. Like the story goes in a really strange direction and they were kind of pushing this new guy, Nero, and yeah, you don't play as Dante till like later on, and I got sick of the game because I wasn't fast enough with the combos. So I got to see Nero most of the time, and I didn't even get to play as Dante. So I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, it's too bad that yeah, like you expected more from the show and like with the pedigree of Castlevania coming up, right? And then now you have Devil May Cry. I guess the expectation was pretty high regarding the source material, and sadly, as you're saying, it's was more of a mid experience.
Yeah. And again, it's like I don't know why was it I got like too crazy hype because again, the Netflix track record does fluctuate. So they can't be like, is it home runs every time. And obviously there's certain things that may speak to me more and may speak to other people more. But again, I don't know. I had a good feeling at least about the show visually that I was just like, okay, I didn't even consider like, is it how much would be changed? But I'm like, there's enough source material to work with where you could make something pretty cool. But it's almost there, but misses, just a good few number of things in there. So it's just like, it's not quite my speed.
But remember, Netflix also brought you the masterpiece that is Resident Evil, right? So
Why do you hurt me like this, man? Oh man, like there's certain times where, you forget that certain things exist, and then someone just like, jogs your memory of like just this disgusting thing is that just exists in this little corner of your mind. You're like, ugh,
two for tuna for this episode.
yeah, ugh.
Okay, I'm gonna try to lessen that. I'm sorry.
I don't know, man. I feel like you'll just come back and get me when I least expect it again in the future.
Speaking of shows with like high expectations, yeah, drum roll please. Last of Us season two. It's
And it's here.
it's
It's
here.
here. I think the anticipation for this second season has been pretty high, not only for those who only jumped in on the hype with the TV show, but also for those who have played the games, mostly because I think similar to like with Sonic 3, when they knew that a certain character, something was going to happen to her in it, everyone has been looking forward to seeing how The Last of Us, like, was it season two, would depict the second game because that is a lot of game. And as you are well aware, there's been the announcement that there is going to be a third season, which
Mhm.
clearly will be like probably adapting more of the second game because
Yeah.
again, there was no way that was going to be able to fit an entirety of like, was it that game into a season of television, especially considering the episode counts, because they very rarely ever change episode counts between seasons when it comes to HBO shows, with some exceptions to the rule. But with this show, again, there were so many things that they would have to depict in a certain way, and I was wondering what kind of changes or what kind of things would remain the same. And again, if the certain event would come to pass, which it hasn't happened yet,
Yeah,
but
no.
if and when it does, I
Well,
want to know what's going to happen with the
this is the
internet.
sporting event that we're talking about, right? Like
Yes, yes.
it's
Good gravy. But yeah, I mean, I think for a little while there wasn't that much in the way of advertising until I want to say the last few months where they really started to ramp up on that with the trailers. So I was, very curious and it felt like a good wait until April showed up, but now it's here, like the first
Oh yeah.
episode's out in the wild and I have seen some takes about it, but yeah, just to put my few cents into it before we discuss the episode, it's like I am not as intimately familiar with like, the Last of Us Part 2 as opposed to the first game. The first game I know pretty much like back to front in terms of how the plot progressed and how it played out. With the second game, I'm more familiar with the key points of what happens in terms of, the significant details. So the bridge between certain events, that's the journey to get to some of those points. That's where I'm a little fuzzy and maybe even the introduction of the game, save for a couple incidents here and there that I'm just like not familiar with. So this is me going in mostly fresh.
I have played both The Last of Us 1 and 2, and I've Platinum 2 on PlayStation. So that requires two playthroughs of the
Damn.
game, and I am very like I am familiar with this game intimately, and I'm looking at my like player count right now, like earlier in my phone, and it's just like my hours for the game. I put in 78 hours into The Last of Us 2, which is I've done multiple playthroughs of Last of Us Part 1 on easy and hard mode. I am not playing grounded mode. That is just no, like no, not at all. Like I want to see how, like if my character's gonna die or not. Like grounded is just like, yeah, like I don't need to experience like the post-apocalypse right now. Like when it happens, it happens, but like, I'd like some sort of cinematic stuff into the game. But yeah, like yeah, before we talk about the episode, yeah, like I did know like what I'm going in. I am one of the lucky few who wasn't spoiled when like all the leaks happened. Because yeah, The Last of Us 2 was for the haters of the game, I would say how much of it was taught behavior or was it primed? because of all the, all the what it is, what the expectations are going in. So like a lot, like I have a feeling like a lot of players came into the game with that expectation of like hating it, or they just hold on to their guns. I'm gonna hate this game, right? I came in quite fresh when I started playing the game and starting to inform my opinion as I went through. I'm also one of the rare unlucky ones who played it pre-patch and like came across so many of the like these bugs that had in the game. Like it was weird. There was like one instance when like Ellie just started sinking into the ground. I can't get past this area because the ground was literally like quicksand lava. She would fall like underneath the city on a glitch, and I think I posted it on YouTube, and I just went, "What is going on?" So I had to like reinstall the game, start from scratch. Well, start from scratch in the last save, leading into that level. So I was going, yeah, I had to like restart like a whole sequence. But yeah, um, overall, like I really have a lot of mixed feelings with the game, and also it's the pandemic. It was June 2020 at the height of it. We were all isolated, we were all holed up, and you have this really bleak show, like this bleak game, like that I had to play twice just to get that platinum. And I was like, like I think I stopped playing games for at least like a month and I just started watching shows until Hades came out on the Switch. But yeah, like this game like stopped me from playing games for a while because like a lot of the content I've been playing are like bleak as hell. Need
Yeah.
something like lighthearted. I didn't even play Ghost of Tsushima until like months down the line because yeah, I just didn't want to play any games. It really gets under your skin, like how the game worked up. And as yeah, as we discuss the episode a bit more, like I'll really get into like how I feel comparing the two source materials, and what my ultimate, first impressions are as the show goes on.
That mate, that was really well said. I mean, again, I wish I had like that kind of perspective on there as well, from playing the game, but I know that these games just aren't for me. There's certain type of like, third person, like I guess sort of action, kind of games where there is like, is it creeping, shooting, some stealth and like potential like horror elements in there where I'm just like, nah, this just isn't for me and it's not my cup of tea. But I remember as an outsider to the franchise, but still being on the internet, I was around when those leaks went down, and I kind of just wanted to see what was going on in terms of certain YouTubers that I followed that like knew about the information, and the for lack of a better term, shitstorm that kicked up on that was insane. I have never seen like so much hate, so much intense hate just flood through the internet into every crevice of where I existed on the comment sections on at least several different YouTube places and websites, or just even places where, it's that thing where you're on Twitter and you see it trending on there. And, when it's trending and you have no connection to it whatsoever, you know that it's like a big deal. And that's when I found out about those leaks in terms of the information. Now, I can't remember specifically how much of the leaks were like 100% accurate, but again, when it came to some of those key details that we all are aware that ended up in those games, they were right on the money and people were pissed.
Mhm.
So then when the game eventually did come out, like you said, there were some people that were already predisposed to hate the game straight away, and there were some people who were like open to it and just said the nature of the game, what it's trying to say in terms of its themes, its story, it has a lot, and some people thought it was very poignant, very cool, and again, like added an extra layer to games in a way that you'd never seen before, and obviously adding that sort of more cinematic and like was it like deeper, intenser experience. And I appreciate Neil Druckmann and his team at Naughty Dog, like attempting to do that kind of stuff. When it comes to the execution of it, like again, it just depends. Again, I haven't seen the whole of the game, so I can't like really speak to it, but as someone who's obviously like been a fan of certain franchises, to be in that kind of franchise where like, you've enjoyed that first entry and then to have a second entry that attempts something different, but really like, it changes a number of things to the point where you're just like, I don't know, man. So I couldn't imagine what that feels like. There's none of my franchises have ever received that kind of crazy kind of change, especially when it comes to a story like that. But I'm curious to see what this show is going to do. This
Yeah.
show has an even trickier task than the previous one because the first game has a lot of interesting story and themed elements, but it's still something that I think is fairly easy to, digest and take in. Whereas the second game goes so deep into the trenches of like, pain and suffering where you're just like, yo, man, get me off the ride sometimes. I
Hmm.
don't know. So I need to know. I need to know because there were some people that were already saying in the previous season that they felt like, even though it was mostly an adaptation that was clearly borrowing from the games, they felt like certain changes weren't necessary. Or like, for instance, some people felt that Joel was too soft as opposed to the games where he was a little bit more of a,
Yeah.
standoffish asshole kind of thing. He had a little bit more of a gruff vibe to him. So I don't know. There's so many things to consider. But anyway, we've talked around that first episode, so I guess we should like at least talk about it now.
Well, I would say in the first Last of Us, regarding that Joel being too soft, which is basically like how he was portrayed in the game The Last of Us 2, where he was getting soft. Yeah, getting soft with age, right?
Yeah,
Whereas in like the first season in the TV show, um, I would say, I wouldn't say soft. I would say tired. The guy's really getting tired. Like, he's been doing this for 20 years, and I feel that like they could have explored that more in the first game, where he's just tired of the shit, like he's just tired of just putting up with the mistake that he committed 20 years in the past. And he's done a lot of bad shit in between that. So yeah, I would say like it was a natural progression. And I guess I would chalk it up to Neil Druckmann knowing his source material from the way it evolved to now versus like when he made it in 2013. I think he was still tooling the second game and the world at large. So in terms of like an auteur, like he was really fleshing it out, and now he knows who Joel is as a character. Whereas the gamers who have experienced it all the way back in 2013, I guess this is what they feel. This is the character that they've internalized, and then as it came out 7 years later, you're still expecting the same person, but like like times have changed. He has grown older. He has, in a certain way, found peace. So, call it soft, call it whatever you want, but people change, and sorry that he didn't really change the way you as the way you expected him to be. So
nicely said. Character progression and change is always like a tricky thing, especially when it's someone that you like and you have like a certain view of them for a certain amount of time before you get to like those sort of moments where time progresses. So yeah, it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky balance. Sometimes it is something that people are willing to accept, and sometimes it's just like, yeah, no, I don't like what you're doing. You've ruined my childhood. I'm gonna come and get you.
well, which is ironically the theme of the
Yeah.
the game, which is like revenge, like you ruined my childhood.
Yeah, oh my
Oh,
God.
I
Oh
was,
no.
I was, I was so close to saying something. I was so close. You ruined my childhood. Let's like let that simmer for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Which is basically how the episode started out, right? They introduced the innocuous character, just the fireflies at the aftermath of the chaos that Joel caused at the end of the first season. Where we're introduced to Abby, like basically like they've really made that introduction very clear and what they're setting out to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't expect her to, appear like as quickly as she did, but they basically established those like, key details very quickly.
Mhm.
And Caitlin Dever, I think that's her name.
Yeah.
I know that there was like some people that were, going into this were saying, "Oh, why is she not like, some muscle, like, was it tank of a woman?" And I'm just like, "Come on, guys, like, are we still doing this? Leave it alone." Um, but yeah, I mean, like, Caitlin Dever. Once I saw her in like, is it that sci-fi movie from like, I don't think it was last year. I think it was the year before. Was it No One Will Save You? Or at least I think that was the name of that film.
Yeah.
Um, she was really good in that, and that was
Mhm.
the first thing I saw her in. And like, for a film where like, there wasn't really that much dialogue, and she had to do a lot of the acting, just physically. I knew that she was plenty capable for this. And in this show, it's only the first episode, and she's there for a short time, but she makes her presence known. And she like, I feel like she's definitely gonna like, leave an impression as the show goes on. But I think,
Yeah.
her interaction was pretty solid.
It's really good, yeah. I did remember that film, No One Will Save You, and I really enjoyed like that creative choice where they made like very little speeches heard, like very little dialogue for the whole
Yeah,
movie. And then, as it broke down and as you see the like her backstory as she explores her house and explores her world, like her world, it's a really strange film, I would say. I appreciate it a lot more than when I think of now. But for a second, I almost made the same mistake as I made in the last episode podcast where I was like, yeah, she was pretty good in Ant-Man 3.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, different actress.
Yeah, very different
Probably.
like performances.
Yeah. Like, brunette, right? But anyway, like yeah, just making a comment of like how like the two storytelling differences between playing the game and the show. Whereas like I really have a feeling that the way the show would work is like more of a linear fashion and probably some flash like probably a bottle flashback episode down the line, or a flashback episode in the following season, right? Um
Yeah,
since the game is really huge. There is a moment in the game where it's kind of open world, kind of not, and then it just, keeps going. Where I would say that the way how linear the progression of the story goes, whereas with the game, you're met with shock, and the flashback kind of explains, the backstory of why this happened.
yeah,
Um, like I really like how like this is linear, like, as linear as it gets, and like really prepares you as it goes through. Whereas like a lot of the events that would like transpire within the episode were revealed like later in the game, right? Like like you saw some video, like a video of previous, right? And then
yeah,
like you kind of go, okay, this cutscene, you're kind of expecting it to start the game, but then like, oh, like why did this cutscene show up much later in the game? Where like how the game story transpired, they kind of showed it and then they explained it. Whereas with this game, it's just like with a TV show, it was progressing pretty smoothly in a linear fashion, which like I really appreciate. And I would say like if I was playing the game, I would say like that this story progression would have benefited the game a bit more. I feel that like leading to the sporting event that we're talking about would be I would say like like it is what it is, but at the same time, if it was more linear, I would say it would prepare us a bit more. I would say um as an audience.
yeah. No, again, like, it's really well said. I do believe that there were some people that stated that the Last of Us 2 did feel a little long when compared to the first game. So I do feel like you said, some streamlining or like, was it streamlining of events in general would help in terms of like making things, connect a little quicker between certain events. Again, that will remain to be seen as to how well that will work by the time the season is over. But I did feel like there was at least a little bit more forward momentum in terms of how we got from the start to the end of the episode, where I was just like, "Ooh, it felt like swift, but not in a way where I felt like, as it things were being overlooked. It just felt like, okay, was it we got some forward momentum going here and we're literally just like gonna keep going from there, which I was like, okay, cool. I'm vibing with how things are going right now. So yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It ended in a yeah, like we were kind of going into spoiler territory for the TV show. Um, so spoiler alert, if ever one of us blurts something that could potentially spoil, like what you've seen. But yeah, as the story went along, like I was really like curious as to what they would feature on the pilot episode because there's so much. I would say like as you mentioned, like the game is huge, even like the process of adaptation for the TV series, like where do you start? Which one do you lead in with? Yeah, and then the introduction of Catherine O'Hara's character into the TV show, like also worked really well to show to remind the audience of like how colorful Joel's life is leading to this moment of retirement, I would say.
Mhm.
Like he's in his 60s and he's as you said soft, like he's kind of like semi-retired at this point. Not really part of the council, but still like a pretty solid member of that society community. And yeah, just yeah, as I said, I'm getting into spoiler territory here. So uh, you know, take my first statement with a bit, like probably skip forward about 2-3 minutes to continue. But yeah, character Catherine O'Hara's character is Joel's therapist, um, Gail in this episode, and then pretty much reminds Joel of who he was, still is, like basically whatever he did in the past is definitely part of you, even if it's for a while. And he's done some bad stuff in the past trying to survive, right? Like, so he killed her husband, and she is a therapist trying to have him, get through this very like first world problem of, oh, my 19-year-old daughter's not talking to me type of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, there's like um, while she is going through her own way of accepting the fact that she is helping the man who killed her husband. So yeah, like the sins of your past will catch up with you, as basically the biggest theme of ongoing character arc that Joel will probably go through within the season. So yeah, hashtag like a backslash spoiler end.
But yeah, no, I'd say there's a lot of really fun and interesting things happening right now. I mean, okay, fun is probably not the right choice of word, but again, it's just there is a nice rawness that comes with like conversations between characters. They are fully aware of the world that they're living in terms of like the dangers that are surrounding them, but they're still trying to push forward. They're all just trying to make the best of like, was it the situation that they're in. And some characters are dealing with their own internal struggles, but then there's also people who have, in this case, like the what you've mentioned before with Joel and the therapist, they have like, was it issues that are connected to other people as well, which makes it hard for them to continue forward when they're both in the same space. So again, I just like seeing these conversations and how people choose to navigate it. Like, because obviously there's certain people that will choose to at least attempt to try and deal, and there's those who will just like just say, you know what, screw it, I'm not dealing with this right now. I'm just going to deviate and try to do something else, get my mind off of it. And there's certain people with issues where keeping it internally bottled up inside will just mean that it'll just lead to lack of conversation between other people, or just, violent outbursts where, obviously in this case, Joel and Ellie, like, are having like issues. So yeah. Again, I just like seeing these people just acting like they do, presenting like, scenarios and conversations that feel like, was it tangible.
Hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And
Well,
yeah, I mean, I the only other thing I was going to mention is like the presentation still seems to be like, is it on point? That
mhm,
was one of the like high points, obviously, of the previous season. They put a lot of like, time and effort into terms of like, constructing these like locations that all have like distinctive looks. It's filmed fairly well, and the use of practical and digital effects to depict certain situations, it looks fairly clean, realistic. There doesn't seem to be too much in the way of like, oh yeah, these like, visual effects look off, or this doesn't look, realistic. Again, there just seems to be a lot of polish in the presentation department, which I appreciate. So yeah.
yeah, I'm really curious of where the show is going to go, because in terms of the game, the way
Mm.
like I would say it's a percent into three parts. Yeah, well, including the prologue, and then yeah, you have the first three parts. The first part is completely from Ellie's point of view. And the second part of the game, same thing happens, but from Abby's point of view. And
Yeah.
then finally, the third part is basically how everything basically ends, and they shift between the two characters, and that's why it was a bit long in a way. Yeah, and I think I don't know if it was it two discs in the no, I was playing it digital, like so I didn't have the physical media, right? So
Oh yeah.
but I still think of that even though like I 100% play most of my games digitally. So
Yeah.
yeah, like really interested to see like how this transpires, and as we go through this episode, kind of like the way they split the episodes, kind of similar to like how like Daredevil's doing it now with the two seasons being split,
Yeah.
9 episodes, and this one 2 7 episodes, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. I actually haven't looked up the episode count, and to be fair, I'm actually not sure about the amount of Blu-ray discs that the game was set on. I just remember that that was brought up when it came to Final Fantasy, and loads of people just like, "Yo, we're going back to the PlayStation era where we had to play games on multiple discs." I'm like, how interesting how we hate, time has just sort of rotated back around. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, like going back to like Switch 2, like physical media, they're still trying to keep it, but then would you pay $90 for for a game key?
God, no. I mean, like the thing is, I'd say 97% of my like Switch games are like, digital, with like maybe just OG Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and Smash Brothers being like, was it physical. I double dipped on Smash Brothers just because I couldn't be asked to keep switching like, my game cartridges. So I was just like, I'll just double dip. I don't care. I did the same thing for Breath of the Wild as well. There's certain games I'm like, you know what? Fine. I like to have a physical copy, but I would also like to play this with the convenience of like not have to switch game cards. So I'm fine with that. But with Switch 2, it's a bit of a minefield right now until we have those games out on the shelves, and then we'll be able to know physically for sure which ones will be like, physical, which ones will only have like download keys or will only have part of the game on the cartridge. I don't know, man. So it's a
Well,
dangerous world out there.
yeah, well, to Nintendo's credit, they will indicate it in the game. Like when you buy the game, there is this key icon in the bottom of the box showing like, oh yeah, like this game has a game like the key and not the physical game. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
they
That's fine.
will warn you which ones they are. So it's like it's really buyer beware, but with a bit of a warning. If you miss it, you miss it. I'm sorry. They like Nintendo's gonna go, but we warned you. Like, didn't you read? Nobody ever reads the box.
That's fair, Romany. But yeah, it's a dangerous time for like physical media going ahead. I mean, like obviously, I want to say probably since the time I was in Canada, there's been like discussions about like, the idea of physical media going away, obviously with Xbox touting like, a lot more of their digital stuff via like Game Pass and certain companies saying, oh yeah, we're going to be switching to digital. Digital's the future. And then obviously with the games consoles that came with like, just the discless versions, there was all that talk about it as well. And like, again, I like the option to be able to buy games physically. It just depends on what they are and how desperately I want it. I mean, limited run games will always still be around to be able to push that stuff out, but because they only have a limited amount when they do those things, they normally tend to go away pretty quickly. Like
Hmm.
for instance, when like Scott Pilgrim came back around, I did want to pick up a physical copy for the Switch version because they had reversible covers and all that. But because I left it just one day too late, I came back and they were all gone. And I'm like, well, damn. And that was the only means of getting it. So I don't know, unless there's scalpers on eBay just trying to sell an arm and a leg for it, I'm pretty
Yeah, I
sure I'm like
know.
crap out of luck right now. Boo.
Yeah, I really wish they they the distributors, the companies that have the license to the game, like just changed like the paradigm of it. Like gamers, like we want to own our we spent money for them. We do want access to them, like whatever. We're not buying a license. Like now I guess it's the when you read the end user license agreement, you are paying for the license of this games, saying that it'll end in 2525, right? Like, will Earth even be around at 2525?
God.
I mean, humans on Earth, no, the planet will still be like a flaming ball of rock, but it's the things that live in it. I don't know.
Yeah. Good
But
grief.
still though, like but they can end it whenever they want to. Like the servers go down, they just delist it because somebody else bought the license. Just like it's a tricky thing. That's why like game preservation's a thing. Like I do agree, like I do believe in some way, and then but I do benefit with the digital copies because you can play it at any time, thank the cloud. But what happens when the cloud is gone?
Yeah.
Everything degrades, really. Like at the end of the day, the physical media will also go away. But I think it's more it has to do with users' rights and having access to the thing that they paid for, which is an only fair. It's a give and take, right? Companies get your money. What's that? The executives go on their make their golden parachutes and whatnot. But like all the end of the day, like the users just want access to the games that they paid for with their hard-earned cash that they use time of their lives to earn. So I think it's just fair that if companies would license these games, at least have some, I guess, compensation just in case, like, oh, we paid for it, so why don't we get access to it? I guess they'll just the same way as like subscriptions work, right? You forget the subscription exists and you're just paying for it, and like buyer beware, I guess, right? Like
Mhm.
which is cool
Absolutely.
though. Like I do get an email like every week from HBO going like, hey Max, like hey, by the way, your subscription will you'll be charged next week. Are you still cool? Are you still cool to want to keep your subscription? And I'm like, well, thanks for the reminder. I think I'll keep it this month. Or oh, thanks for the reminder. Maybe I'll end it this month and restart it again when Peacemaker shows up and just binge watch the rest of the Last of Us. Yeah, so I didn't expect we're going into this game preservation talk.
I mean, like, let's be real. Like, whether we're doing this podcast or if we're talking in real life, tangents are inevitable.
Definitely. Well, speaking of the Breath of the Wild, like, what do you think of this Legend of Zelda movie coming up in 2 years, I guess?
Yeah, so there was that announcement not too long after the Nintendo app was announced that the direct prior to the Switch 2 Direct that the Legend of Zelda movie would be dropping in, I believe it's March of 2027, I think. I want to say it was March 26th specifically,
Oh
but I
wow.
just need to confirm that.
Yeah, I'm on
Um,
IMDb right now. In development, expected March 26th. Right on the
Yeah,
money.
that's the one. Yeah, so because I remember it was gonna be like pretty close to my birthday, because I was like, ooh, that's pretty close. That's nice. I guess that's an early birthday present for myself, but then again, I guess it depends on what kind of like contents that present will be. Now, all that we know right now is that it's live action. Is going to be like, is it Sony produced? I want to say Avi Arad is involved in there in some way, shape, or form, which did give some people some, cause for concern because obviously for the good work that he did in like ushering in some of the early Marvel films in the early 2000s, he was responsible for some of their failures as well, and was also attached to some of the, latter, like, is it Marvel films that didn't do too well, starting with, I want to say the Amazing Spider-Man films. And I think he still had some attachment to some of the other Sony universe related films that have graced our screens in the last, like, 10 or so years. But the whole thing was that people were hoping after the Mario film that the rest of Nintendo's properties would be in the world of animation as well, especially considering the nature of Zelda and its various different art styles and the way it's been depicted. It would be right for, animation as opposed to live action. But then if there was any, Nintendo franchise that could work in the world of live action outside of Metroid, it would probably be this one. But then you'd have to, like, be very careful, because then taking that into the realm of realism, there's a whole load of things that you're just like, will this work in live action in terms of like costumes, locations, the monsters, enemies, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different things you'd have to, think about. And then obviously when it comes to the Zelda timeline, which game do you want to borrow from? Are we going to go basic old school with like, the original Legend of Zelda? Are we going to go for more of a Link to the Past, or are we going to go with, Ocarina of Time? I doubt they'd ever attempt to do Wind Waker as their first one, but like considering that, realistically, the most, detailed of the Zelda games is Twilight Princess. But again, that would be an interesting choice to go for their first game. So I'm feeling like right now they probably will go with an original story that probably takes elements of several games, but I think it'll probably will just come down to Link needs to save Zelda from Ganon.
Yeah.
Link will probably be like, is it summoned by Zelda? She'll probably be in a state where she's either captured or in a state where she's holding Ganon off for as long as she can, and he'll have to go on an adventure to grab a hold of the stuff, probably meet some people along the way, and then defeat Ganon. It's probably like a simple enough story that would work. Depending on how it gets done, they might just take the Mario movie approach, where again, broad strokes, it's still pretty much what you know from the games, but they're, putting their own unique stamp on it. I just want to know how they'll depict the world of Hyrule, because, there's a lot of really cool places in the world that you could be filming, but I'm just like, where are they going to be filming? Are we going to go back to Australia or New Zealand again because they have some really cool locations in there? Are we going to go to places like Scotland or Ireland that have like, some interesting locations there, or like a bunch of different like, wasteland locations within America? Um, what kind of CGI are they going to use to enhance the locations? What are the practical locations going to look like? Again, what does the costumes look like? I want to know who the bloody production designers are and who the costume designers are, because seeing those things in like promotional screens will definitely like give you an indication as to what we're working with. I remember before Fallout came out, people weren't cool with the Vault designs, like, the Vault suits that they were wearing. But when you see it in the show, it actually looked a lot better than it did in those promotional images. But I am also very concerned about who they're going to cast. And because Link can't technically be a mute for the entirety of a movie as opposed to a game, uh, you know, how is he going to speak? Are we going to get someone that sounds like, is it the old cartoon version where it's
Well,
excuse
excuse
me,
me,
Prince?
princess.
Yeah, are we gonna get the dude from the CDI games, like where it's just like where it's just
Oh
like
man.
I could do the duck walk. Pretty cool, huh? And I'm like,
Oh
God.
wow, the forgotten DDI Zelda.
Yeah, man. So, you got that. And technically speaking, mute, Link, while he is a mute, he does technically speak. It's just more through like dialogue boxes, or he'll just obviously be making his load of many cries and shouts as he like, swipes his sword or flips and stuff like that. And depending on which one you get, like that guy is very loud and crazy. I still think like I can't remember the name of the voice actor, but like, the dude who voiced Link in Ocarina of Time and what was the other game? Oh gosh, I forgot. But yeah, that Link is still my favorite. Also, he's the Japanese voice actor for like, was it Batsu from like, was it what fighting game was it that he was in?
Rival
But
School?
he yeah, I think it was that, and like yeah, Batsu from Rival Schools, and I think it was Ikaku from Bleach. As soon as
Hmm.
I remember when I was watching Bleach way back when, in like, was it 2007, watching the Soul Society arc. As soon as that guy started speaking and shouting, I'm like, "That's Link! Oh my God!" And he sounds just as crazy as ever. I love it. But yeah, no, it's interesting now because like we're in this very, very interesting stage where, you know, I think they're already, I'm pretty sure they've gone into production with this film, but we don't know who the cast are. We don't know who's going to be like, is it bringing like these characters to life, what they'll look like. We just know that there is a director, and that is like, was it, oh my gosh, I've actually forgotten his name already.
Westball.
West Ball, there we go, yeah. Dude who directed like all three of the Maze Runner films and The Last Planet of the Apes.
Hmm.
And I think I've said before, but I'll state again. I think the first Maze Runner film was pretty good. It's fairly self-contained when compared to the next entries in the series, but it's got some solid direction and has like, is it some memorable performances from the people involved. It's just that that story, once you start to get beyond like the maze and start to find out what actually happened with, you know, the characters in the world and how they ended up in that scenario in the first place, the story just goes into some interesting places where it's just like, it's not quite as enticing as what came before, but I feel like he did what he could with the material that he was given.
Yeah.
With the fourth Planet of the Apes film, it was going to be tricky to capture that magic of like that trilogy. I feel like that was a really good succinct kind of like series where there was always going to be another entry, but considering Caesar's story and how well that ended, it was always going to be a tough follow-up. I feel like he did a good enough job taking the foundation of what happened before but taking it in a very different direction. I do feel like the writing and the story just wasn't as compelling as what came before, but I feel like for his first, like, was it foray into this world and was able to still at least give us something that felt like, close to what came before, it made me feel a lot better about him stepping into this world is like, as the director for the Zelda film. But obviously, with the overseeing of the property from Nintendo, they're probably going to try their best to make sure that he doesn't mess this up. But we'll see. I mean, again, a live action Zelda was not on the bingo card for me, so I was just like, okay. Again, the casting will be the be all and end all. This might be like the biggest thing since like, they cast Harry Potter, man, because
Oh
like
yeah.
Link is a very specific character who has a certain type of vibe depending on what kind of game it is. Obviously, he's the protagonist, so he is formidable, he is heroic, he will do the right thing at the end of the day. But depending on which game it is, sometimes Link can be like a little bit more sassy, he can be a little bit more like, is it what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit more subdued.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes it could be a little bit more silly. It really just depends. So yeah, I'm sure we'll probably get some announcement at some point, but Nintendo will probably be like the ones to announce that, sort of like what they did with their or maybe it might be again like a case where Jeff Keighley just happens to get the scoop and drops it at one of his events. So I don't know, maybe the Game Awards, maybe this time
Or it's gonna
in December.
just drop into one of these Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Directs, right? Like,
They could, yeah. So I mean, like they hold all the cards at the moment. At the moment, yeah, like they could do it.
oh, like, and yeah, like, and if someone leaks it, Nintendo's just gonna sue them.
Yeah,
Well, anyway, like, I guess, like, in your bingo cards, like for this month, it basically ends with Until Dawn.
yeah. The last like adaptation for a little while, at least for this year. I am curious about this because I remember when it was announced, and I was just like, an Until Dawn movie. I mean, isn't the game already sort of like an interactive movie? Do we
Hmm.
need this? But I was like, okay, I think like, was it Until Dawn as like, was it a game? Does have enough elements where you probably could make an interesting movie out of it. Again, you'd be doing pretty much what The Last of Us did in the sense that, you could just copy the homework of the game, make some interesting changes and still make it work. However, it seems like from what I've seen, which again isn't much because I didn't really like properly watch the trailer, but it seems like what they've done now is just go for a very different kind of vibe with this, with a different kind of story altogether. The only sort of like tangential like connection to the game that they have is like bringing Peter Stormare back.
Yeah.
Um, which was just again very surprising. But the film is being directed by David F. Sandberg, who obviously did get a start in like as a horror stuff beforehand. He's a decent pick for like is it this
Mm.
kind of like a film, but we'll see. We'll see if it's effective. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised watching the trailer for this film. I was kind of expecting like I don't know if they can afford Rami Malek right now. But and also like the amateurs just came out, right?
Oh yeah, no, of course, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like that's who I like really remember from the original game. Like yeah, Rami Malek and Hayden Panettiere from the original Until Dawn. And I really felt like why would they even make a movie that deconstructs like a film for a video game? Like the video game itself was already like, the perfect medium for this, where like branching off stories. And how are they gonna do that aspect in the film? Well, they kind of did, they had this like they showed the effect of like rewinding. So basically they have this weird concept where, they have to get they literally took the title like they literally took the title, right? Until dawn. Like they just have to make it to dawn. But for some reason there's this bit of an aspect where like they really can't hit dawn before everybody dies. But they somehow can, change the outcomes of things in this weird cabin in the wood types. Let's throw all these horror tropes all in one, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
just yeah, have this mansion, just make sure you survive until dawn. Yeah, like doesn't make it clearer than that. But yeah, I'm kind of curious how they will push it because basically like the Until Dawn game in itself, like the plot was the plot, like it was, like it had its twists and turns and they threw in like slashers and supernatural stuff and splatter horror all in one and then the more you diverge from the path, the more weirder the game goes, and suddenly it's a Wendigo. Woo.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I just want to see like how they pull off like it's more of like the concept that stood out from Until Dawn rather than the plot, like the concept carried the plot. So
Yeah.
that's the magic of the original Until Dawn, which sadly, the Dark Pictures anthology really can't hit. It just keeps giving us the same stuff, but it's not giving us the same magic.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I've not watched through a lot of those because I did find that after a while, I think, obviously playing these kind of games and navigating it for yourself can be interesting, but I do think it does make for a good, like, watch along experience via like a let's play or something, seeing how players like navigate that kind of stuff, or watching, just a long play on YouTube. I think part of the fun is seeing what kind of weird shenanigans you get into when you do pick the wrong option, and see how like things progress with unfortunate deaths of certain characters. Because I think a lot of people in a sort of weird or sadistic kind of way just want to see what kind of chaos will happen if you do pick that wrong option, or maybe if you just don't like a character, it's like, okay,
Oh yeah.
I'm just going to try and make sure that this person gets got.
Oh yeah. The
Um,
moment I saw the opportunity, that one character got it. It's just like, oh, you're
yeah.
dying right now. Please fucking die. And it happened. And everybody else is like, oh, she's dead. And I'm like, why aren't you more happy? You all wanted her gone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yeah, I am very curious to see if this film will, I mean, it obviously is going in a different direction, but if it's able to capture at least that kind of energy of that first game, that will be obviously pretty good for the end result. I'm wondering how much of a splash this film will make because obviously
Yeah.
Until Dawn has its fans, but it's what, a 2014, 2015 game? I
Yeah,
can't
20,
remember.
yeah, yeah, around that time.
Obviously they had the remastered like version come out and people weren't happy with like a lot of the changes that were made in there, especially when it comes to the color scheme and lighting.
So dark.
um
Such a dark, like looking game.
yeah, so I mean, that one is still like, the king of like, is it that super massive kind of like a style of game. So I I'm just wondering how they're going to try and approach that for the film and who's going to come out to see it. Because I mean, horror films do have like those fans that will come out and see it on occasions. But obviously you have the game fans on top of that that will help like support it as well. But I'm just wondering how much will that help, or if this might be another one of those sort of like lower box office entries this year. I guess we'll see. I mean, it's
We'll
just
see.
before like Thunderbolts comes around, but it'll be
Mhm.
just after like, is it Sinners and I think that comes out the same week that The Account 2 comes around, but I'm wondering how much of a splash that film is going to make because The Accountant, when that came out in 2016, I feel like that film was there for a certain amount of people, me included, but like I don't remember that making like that much of a big wave. So I'm wondering how much this new one will be doing. Because I mean, like the concept of the second trailer does seem a bit odd, but going back with like Ben Affleck and John Bernthal does sound like fun. But I don't know, box office hasn't been like too hyped this year. Again, save for Minecraft. So I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
what these other films are going to be doing because Mickey 17 obviously didn't have like much in the way of prospects for that film, like as it sort of crashed and burned. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, Warner Brothers are already like feeling pretty ruthless about any of their entries that aren't going to be making them like $10,000 billion. So I don't know.
It's true. And yeah, I mean basically everybody else like literally assassinating Snow White, right? So
Oh God, yeah, what a mess. I mean, that film has like it's just like that film had 50 problems before it even started to get there. And again, several of them weren't even related to Rachel Zegler, but unfortunately, like, is it she's unfortunately part of the chaos tornado.
Mm. And yeah, we saw how that all turned out. So again, like
Yeah.
everything can only go up from here, I guess.
You'd hope. I mean, well, I guess they would be more so that it's their money on the line.
Mhm. Apparently they're gonna stop all the live action adaptations, which was like, yeah, they could have done that like 5 years ago, but you know,
Yeah, I mean, after
here
the
we are.
because considering the way that Mulan ended in like 2020, I want to say
Yeah,
that was like already just like an indication that was like, yeah, we're done here. Like,
yeah.
I've, that film still makes me salty. I think that's even more salty than like when I watched the Lion King remake, which that was just lifeless, but there was at least some smidge of fun in there. Mulan was just soulless and disgusting, and just an insult to my eyes and my heart.
Oh well, the fact that they didn't have that that We Are Men song, right? Like
Yeah, and
uh,
uh, yeah, I'm gonna leave that alone for now.
So yeah, like that pretty much what a busy month. And as we like end this month, it's gonna be a while since the next one's.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, I think we'll probably come back around. Um, we'll probably won't do like, Last of Us episodes like week to week, but maybe
Or
like, maybe just do like a few in a bunch or something like that, maybe.
I guess we could wait till it's over and then we can have a post-mortem.
Oh my God. Ah. Again, anyone who's in the know will know exactly what that means. And again, if that if things transpire in the way that they do, good gravy, the conversation that we're gonna have. Whew,
3 for 3 this episode, Kurt.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, well done for that one. Is it?
Your face though.
I can't hide how I feel, man.
Oh, love it. Love it. You
But
just fall
yeah,
for it every time. It's the best.
I can't escape. It's like, one of my worst habits. I just like if it's not me setting myself up, then it's normally just like, being unaware that someone's gonna put me in it. I can't escape at that point. I'm done. I'm not,
Oh well. Yeah. We all have our quirks.
there's that. Uh, but yeah, I guess we'll bring this episode to a close for the time being. I think we've covered all of our like key topics for today. Um, But yeah, just before we close it out, like Vincent, where can people find you on that internet?
Well, yep, I write for one more game, really small but capable independent game journalism publication based in the Philippines. Hopefully, yeah, I am set to go to Summer Game Fest for the third time this year. So let's see what see what they have in store for us in the future.
Big hype. I'll be looking forward to seeing what kind of coverage you guys come out with. Um, because then I can normally just make an informed decision. It's like, okay, this is good and this is bad, and this might be of interest. So yeah, look forward to that. And as for me, you'll find me lurking about on the internet, either on Instagram as Hypersonic55 or via my other podcast, Film Focus. Unfortunately, it hasn't been any reviews since February just because like I've run into a few issues in terms of like seeing films and having like the heart to actually review anything at the moment. But with a couple entries in April, I'll probably have like some more stuff to post about. And yeah, if you just want to check out my art, just find me on Instagram or ArtStation at Hypersonic55. But yeah, anything you want to bring up about the episode, whether it was us talking about the Last of Us season 2 or Devil May Cry or Minecraft or like, Mythic Quest or the side quest thing. Bob. I don't even know what the name of that damn thing is, but the spin-off of that show, if you have any interesting points about that you want to bring up, just drop in the comment section below. Follow the podcast on places where podcasts can be found. So, obviously primarily Spotify, but also on YouTube and Apple and all the other kind of stuff. But yeah, I guess until the next time, I'll see you later, ladies and gents.
Bye.